Good morning, dear participants. I have been asked to speak on handling difficult students in the classroom. I'm a teacher like any one of you. For a teacher, a student is both an opportunity and a challenge. It's very difficult to be a good teacher, and it's more difficult to be an effective teacher in the classroom. You can say anything, but handling students in the classroom is a big challenge to every teacher. More especially, handling difficult students in the classroom is a very tough task for any teacher. One becomes a teacher when he very effectively handles difficult students in his classroom. I believe that every teacher in his teaching career will come across at least a couple of students who are very problematic. And a teacher has to put all his experience, his knowledge, his understanding to test to handle these so-called difficult students in the classroom. And I'm going to share my experience of handling such difficult students in my classroom over the last 2 decades in colleges and universities where I worked. Let us understand who is a difficult student. So unless I know who is a difficult student, how can I handle him or her? A difficult student in some sense is a problematic student in the classroom. What do I mean by this? Difficult or problematic? A problematic student is one who not only poses certain problems to the teacher teaching in the classroom, but also someone who is not prepared to learn anything in the classroom. There could be many reasons why a student in the classroom refuses to be taught or refuses to learn. And a teacher's job is to analyze these problems so that he can handle such difficult students with an ease. Let us understand who is a difficult student or a problematic student. A student may have various problems. Number one, he is very slow in learning. Number two, he exhibits certain behavior which is not acceptable. Number two, his capacity to learn is very low. He may have psychological problems. He may have behavioral problems. He may have cognitive problems. He may have language problems, linguistic problems. He may have physical problems. So there are many problems why a student becomes a difficult student in the classroom or a problematic student in the classroom. I am basically a teacher of English, a teacher of literature. I am neither a psychologist nor a scientist. What I am going to say today is entirely based on my experience as a teacher of English language and literature. Okay, so let us understand. I'm a teacher and I should understand that in my class there is a student who can be called a difficult student or a problematic student. And how am I going to handle him or her? Yes, I know that he has some problem. And what he does in the classroom, the way he sits, the way he responds, The way he responds to teaching has some problem in it. I don't know how to handle him is the question. It's very easy for a teacher to send a student out of the classroom. Anybody can do it, but that is not the job of a teacher. If a teacher asks his student to go out of the classroom, I think this is a failure. During my 20 years of long teaching service, I think I have not asked even a single student to go out of the classroom. I remember one day I went out of the classroom, but I didn't ask my student to go out of the class. It is my good fortune that I came across only a couple of difficult or problematic students in my classes so far. Now, I imagine that I have a student in my class who is difficult and who is problematic, and how I am going to handle him. If I want to be an effective teacher, then I should treat my students with kind words rather than with rebukes and reprimands. When a student misbehaves in the class, what does usually a teacher do? He will take him to task. He will blame him, abuse him, rebuke him in the presence of all students. Or the teacher can ask him to go out, send him out of the classroom. Question is, can you correct a student by taking him to task, by punishing him, by rebuking him, by blaming him and accusing him, and so on and so forth? No, never. On the other hand, a teacher has to handle such students with a lot of care, with kind words, with encouraging words. Because he is not like any other student. He is a problematic student. He is a difficult student. He needs your love, your care, not your punishment. I should understand that I am a teacher and I am not supposed to punish my student. A good teacher is one who never punishes his students. I have never punished even a single student in my class, both as a teacher and as head of the department or as dean of the faculty and so on. So, let us love our problematic students, our difficult students more than we love our normal students. The aim of a teacher is to help students feel good about themselves and their behavior in the class. A student should feel that he is very comfortable in the class. If he is not comfortable, he is not going to learn at all. The job of a teacher is to create a very congenial atmosphere in the classroom. And he has to help students, problematic students, difficult students, feel good about themselves in the classroom. He has got to be more sympathetic, more compassionate, more kind towards such students. And when misbehavior happens in the classroom, the teachers have to keep the following in mind. Number one, or in other words, what does a teacher, what should a teacher do when he comes across a problematic student in his classroom, a difficult student in classroom? Number one, take a deep breath and try to remain calm. If I find a problematic student in my classroom, what I should do is I should take a deep breath and try to remain calm. I cannot violently respond to a problematic student. That's not my job. I must take deep breath and try to remain calm. Let us understand the situation. Let us understand the problem. Let us understand the student, the mind of the student. And when he misbehaves, something must be happening in his mind. And something must be happening in his heart. Let us try to understand. Unless I remain calm and quiet, I cannot understand what takes place in his mind, in his heart, and in his soul. A doctor has to love his patients. Similarly, a teacher has to love his problematic students, ordinary students, dull students, problematic students, more than so-called normal students, good students. And when I do it, I think I can understand his problem. Yes, this is the reason why the student has misbehaved with another student in the classroom or with me or with his teacher. After remaining calm for a few seconds or a few minutes, a teacher has to set a positive tone and model an appropriate response, even if it means you must take a few moments to compose yourself. If you are disturbed, you should not. Even if you are disturbed, you should not very violently respond to a student. You'll have to take deep breath and try to remain calm. Then take a few moments to compose yourself. When you are all right, when your senses are under your control, you talk to student and find out what the problem is. I'm sure that if you handle difficult student with love and care, with a lot of patience, with the peace of mind, then the student will also respond very positively to you. Then you also give an impression to the student. Look, you misbehaved in the classroom today. Your behavior with your friend in the classroom is not good. The way you reacted to me is also not good. Explain this to the student. Give him an impression that yes, you are upset. And you are upset not with him, but with his behavior. That's very important. So a teacher has to make sure that he is not happy with the misbehavior of the student. I dislike your behavior, not you. Is the impression that a teacher has to give to his students. I like you, but your behavior is unacceptable to me. He will begin to understand, yes, I have done something. For that, my teacher has become upset. If I change my behavior, if I correct myself, my teacher will like me and will also like my behavior. A teacher has to understand that he is not very superior to his student. That he is not better than his student in any way. He must also understand that his student has the capacity to understand. He has the mind to think. He has the heart to feel. He can conceive. He can understand. So let us not treat our students as end products. They are also evolving. They are also evolving. And a lot of teachers do not give a chance to the student who has misbehaved to respond. So, as a teacher, it's my duty to give the misbehaving student a chance to respond. I can't straightway take him to task. This is what you have done. This is very wrong. This is very incorrect. This is immoral, irreligious, unethical, illegal. I can punish you. I can debar you. No, because a teacher is a teacher. A teacher is not a policeman. He's not he's not an authority. He's not a public authority. A teacher cannot punish his student. So he has to give a chance to the misbehaving student to respond to him. Yes, please tell me why you have done this. Never resort to blame or ridicule. This is very important, and it's very unfortunate that a lot of teachers at all levels, be it pre-primary, primary, high school, +2, UG, PG, even at the level of research. So we believe in punishing students. We are very violent with our students. There are teachers who even torture their own students physically. And mental torture, psychological torture is unexplainable. A lot of teachers commit this mistake. We don't understand what happens to a student when I take him to task in the presence of all students. It doesn't matter whether a research scholar or a PG student or a primary school student. I don't see a big difference. My job is to encourage my students. My job is to make my students, feel very great about themselves. I cannot make them feel that they are inferior. They have done something for which they should repent. They have done something for which they have to be punished. No, not like that. A teacher has to be very kind and compassionate. Don't ever make your student feel that he has done something wrong. He will feel discouraged. And don't ever make your friend feel that he has done something very wrong. So let us give him a chance to respond to us. And let us not blame him or ridicule him. So ridiculing a student in the classroom is uncalled for. It's a big mistake on the part of the teacher to ridicule his own student. He has no right to ridicule his student in the classroom. You cannot make fun of your student. You are a paid teacher. You are not guru in the sense in which the term was understood in the past. You are a paid servant. For every classroom, you get paid. Then it's your duty to teach well in the classroom and not to punish the students. And a teacher has to avoid win-lose conflict. When you handle a difficult student, don't think that if you do not punish him, it is your big failure. No, it's not like that. It's not, you are not fighting a war with your student. Don't think that you should always win. Don't think that you should always defeat your student in the debate. Not like that. You surrender to your student. You say sorry to your student. And I'm sure that he will come back next day and meet you and tell you, sir, I'm sorry. I can share one or two personal experiences at the end of my presentation. And a teacher has to try to remain courteous in the face of hostility or anger. When a teacher becomes angry, or when a teacher faces a very hostile situation, then he has to remain more courteous. He has to remain more calm and he should compose himself. A teacher should not lose his patience. An impatient man cannot become a good teacher. A teacher has to have a lot of patience, because you are not dealing with machines. You are not dealing with employees. You are not dealing with your subordinates. You are dealing with your students. Every student in the classroom matters. Every student in the classroom is a living mind. And a teacher has got to be very careful when handling his students in the classroom. See, unless there are students, there is no teacher at all. Because there are students, because there are institutions, we are there. So as a teacher, I don't have my existence if I don't have my students. Now we don't get students because of this COVID. Classrooms are empty, and I feel very strongly that I have become very poor because I don't have students to teach in my classrooms now. So a teacher will have his existence only when he has his students. So he must understand the importance of his students. And a teacher has to treat all students respectfully and politely. I have already made it very clear that a teacher should not think that he is superior to his students in any way. No, not at all. And he should know that his students are more important than himself. So he has to treat all his students respectfully and politely. You can't be impolite with your student. You have to be very decent, very polite with your students. You love them, they will love you. And a teacher, they also know the importance of the teacher. And the relation between a teacher and student should always be very cordial, very friendly, and there should be a lot of understanding between the two. So, I must treat all my students respectfully and politely. It doesn't matter how they are. A student can be impolite, but I cannot be impolite. A student may not respect me, but I should respect my student. They're all students. A student can commit mistake, not a teacher. If you commit a mistake, you are not a teacher. Why should you be a teacher? And I have already made it very clear that a teacher is not a policeman, is not a public authority, is only a teacher. So only a teacher, that's all. I cannot fail a student, nor should I try to pass a student. I cannot debar, I cannot punish, I cannot rebuke, I cannot insult, I cannot humiliate. No, I should not do it because I am a teacher. Remember, a good teacher, an effective teacher is more important than a father. And yes, just as you will have one or two difficult children in your family, you will have one or two difficult students in your classroom. And there is slight difference between a difficult student and a problematic student. Every difficult students need not be a problematic students, and every problematic students need not be a difficult student. Because some students, maybe at the graduate level or postgraduate level, come to colleges and universities only to pass time, only to trouble teachers. I don't deny that. Even when I know that a certain student in my classroom deliberately does this to me, I cannot forget that I am a teacher. I must know how to handle him. I'll give you one or two classic examples that I have handled and my teachers have handled. And what is misbehavior? It's also the duty of the teacher to explain and describe misbehavior to his children. Students, you misbehaved. I say, hey, stand up. This is, you are not supposed to misbehave and you misbehaved. Don't say like that. You describe what is misbehavior to him. And help your students understand the consequences of misbehavior. When you misbehave, this will happen. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. Okay. If your behavior is acceptable, then this is the result. If your behavior is not acceptable, this is the effect. Let us make them understand the consequences of their misbehavior. When a student comes to know that because I have behaved in a certain way, I have got the responses, from my teacher or from my students. If I change my attitude and approach, if I correct my behavior, then I will have different responses from my teacher and others. It is also my duty to make a difficult student understand that he needs to correct his behavior so that he becomes acceptable in the classroom and he can feel good about himself and he can be very easy with himself. So everybody cannot become a teacher. And everybody who teaches in the classroom may not be a teacher. One has to struggle very hard to be an effective teacher in the classroom. It's not an easy task. It's not an easy task. then when a student misbehaves in the classroom, or when I come to know that the response of a certain student in the classroom is not so acceptable to me, I must analyze the reasons. You know, there could be cultural differences as well. Suppose a student coming from a remote village to a big city to learn may not know how to behave in the classroom. Similarly, a South Indian student going to North India, or a North Indian student coming to South India will also face these cultural differences. The job of a teacher is to understand the cultural differences of a student. Okay, these cultural differences are decided by their by their by the by their society, by their community, their religion, um, their linguistic status, social status, economic status, and so on. India is a very diverse country. It's known for its diversity. It's also called multi-racial, multi-linguistic, multi-religious, multicultural state. We cannot expect an uniformed behavior from all the students. They differ. They differ from each other. Okay, the behavior of a certain student may appear to be different from that of another student. It's possible. This cultural diversity is something which we need to understand. And it's also our duty to teach problematic students, difficult students, personal and social skills. We are living in an era of skills. Every student has to be taught, has to be trained in some skills. And difficult students, problematic students have to be trained in what we call personal and social skills, and it is up to the teacher to design these skills and also evolve strategies to teach these skills to his students. Now, grading has become an important, has become a problem, not just in India, all over the world. How to grade students. And all educationalists agree that this grading should be avoided. Giving percentage to students should be avoided. In other words, a teacher has to avoid labeling students as good or bad. This is a major mistake that most of us commit in our classrooms. I say he's a good student. When I say he is a good student, then there is somebody, there is somebody who is not as good as this boy is. So the comparison is understood. Comparison is understood. When I say A is good, then there is somebody, B is bad or C is bad. So it is a teacher has to very consciously avoid labeling students as good or bad. A student is a student, that's all. A child is a child, that's all. My son is better. My son is better than my daughter, or my daughter is better than my son. And sometimes I also commit this mistake. He is my very favorite student. When I say he is my favorite student, what about other students? What do they feel? They think that this teacher loves only A, he doesn't love the rest of the students. So now I have corrected myself. I don't say that he is my favorite student. All my students are favorite students. For me, what matters is you are my student. That's all. And again, this rewarding, when rewarding is also very problematic. But we have to reward exceptionally good students. Grading cannot be avoided and rewarding cannot be avoided. But it has its own problems. Its own problems. When I reward a student for some special skill or for some special intellectual caliber, then I am denying the same to other students. It's very difficult to treat all students equally in the classroom because all of them are not alike. They differ in degree. No students are the same. But still, a teacher has to use some technique to treat all his students equally. And personal care is something which every teacher has to understand. You will have to take personal care of your student. And when I come to know that a certain student in my classroom has some problem in terms of his behavior, in terms of his understanding, in terms of expression and so on, I should not counsel him in the classroom. I cannot discuss with him in the classroom. I should call him to my cabin. I should call him or her to my cabin and explain to him or her, look, this is the problem that you have. You need to correct your behavior. You need to correct your expression. And to correct this, you need to do this, that, and so on. So, in other words, personal care and private counseling, they are very important. And I will share two experiences with you and call it a day. Professor Kirtnath Kurtkoti, a very renowned Kannada critic, a major modern Kannada critic, a very fine professor of English. He was my teacher and he was also my research supervisor. And on 3 to 4 occasions, he shared an experience of his own teacher with me, which I'm going to share with you today. There was a teacher in Karnataka College some 60 years ago. I don't name the teacher. And he was an English teacher, very powerful teacher, very effective teacher, very regular teacher. And he had a difficult student in his classroom, a problematic student in his classroom. And in every class of his, this problematic student and this difficult student would teach him, would tease him, ask him questions, very nonsensical questions, stupid questions, asking questions for the sake of asking questions, would trouble him and tease him and disturb him. And this teacher doesn't understand why this student creates problem for me in the classroom. And other students also wonder why this student was troubling this very good teacher. It continued. It continued for 1 year. And during those days, the teachers themselves used to correct the answer scripts of their own students and reward them the marks. It was in oak. And this student who troubled the teacher for 1 year knew that he would fail in the examination. He wrote his exam and went back to his village. Came back one day. He was in his room. The results were declared. His friends asked him, told him to go to college and see his result. And he said, why should I go to college and see my result? I know my result because I troubled this teacher, wonderful teacher, for 1 year. And since he would correct my answer script, he would have failed me. I don't want to go and see it. Then they went to the college and to their shock, and they learned that this student stood first to the class. They came back running and informed him that you stood first to the class. He didn't believe, but he went to the college and saw with his own eyes. He stood first to the college, first to the class and first to the college. And he straight went to the quarters where the teacher was living. And when he went there, the teacher was sitting on a chair in the veranda, and he straight went to him and touched his feet. Then the teacher stood. He stood up and he embraced him, and he said, "I am proud of you, and you performed well in the examination." Then the student asked, "Sir, you should have failed me. Please tell me why you have lost me." Then the teacher said, "Who am I to fail in the examination? You passed the examination because you did well. I didn't give even a single mark to you more than what you really deserve. You are a fantastic student." This one very marvelous corrective measure taken by the student changed the entire life of the student. The moment he came to know that he stood first to the class, and the moment he went to the teacher's quarters and touched his feet, he understood his mistake and he corrected it. Then he passed his BA, did his LLB, became a very famous advocate in the Supreme Court of India. And this is a moving story explained to me by my own teacher, Professor Kirtinath Kurtkoti. I will share my own experience, then qualitative, small experience. I think I came across 3 problematic students in my classroom. Then I will just share one example. It happened in Central University of Karnataka. I joined Central University of Karnataka in 2011 as associate professor, and the day I joined the department, I became the head. When I engaged my first class, 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 to 11, I had my first class in Central University of Karnataka. When I went into the classroom, there were 9 students, 10 o'clock, 10:10, some 2 came, 10:20, another 2 came, 10:30, another 8 students came. I didn't say anything. Some students sought my permission and some students didn't. So 10:40, another 8 students came, and all 30 students came at 10:40. I didn't say anything. Then I took my attendance. Then I I knew that all students were in the classroom. Then I said, look, my dear students, I do not ask you how you behaved with your teachers in the department in the past. That's none of our business. I also don't ask you why you used to came late. But I tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow in my class. My class is at 10 o'clock. You should come in time, not even on time. All of you should be in your classroom at 9:58, not 10. If you come at 10, I shall not allow you to attend my class. Number one. Number two, if you don't attend my class, then I will not give you attendance. 1 hour, for 1 hour, you have to sit in my class. I can assure you that I will not bore you. I can give you an assurance that I will not bore you. Even if my class is boring, you are not supposed to go out. You will have to sit for 1 hour in the classroom. You are not UG students, you are not primary students, high school students, you are PG students, Central University of Karnataka. If you come late, I don't allow you. If you don't attend my class, I will not give you attendance. If you fall short of attendance, I shall not allow you to write the examination. And I respect you, I love you. That's why I'm saying this to you. Right? You can win me, but you cannot change me. You cannot use any influence. If you want to pass the exam, you will have to come regularly to the class. Choice is yours. Next day, when I went there, 9:55, all 28 students were there. And 2011, this is 2020, never a single student comes late to my class. Not just to my class, to other classes also. I have not punished. Then in my last class with that batch, in my last class, I said to them, look, I told you that I would not allow you to attend my class if you come 1 minute late. I said it. Had you come late, I wouldn't have said no to you. No, that's only a technique. That's only a technique I used. Right? And if you fall short by 1 or 2 attendance, then I wouldn't have denied an opportunity to you to write the examination. Having said this, I must also say that as a teacher, I have to follow certain rules and regulations, and I cannot heavily compromise with the rules. For example, 75% of attendance is a must. If a student falls short of attendance, then I cannot allow him to write the examination. Okay? Ethics, morality, personal morality, rules, regulation, laws, they don't always go hand in hand. A teacher has to keep both in his mind. Rules, regulation, law, etc. And also what we call morality, etc., etc. So, this is my appeal to all my colleagues, my teaching fraternity, that it's a good fortune that we are teachers, and as long as we are teachers, we should know how we have to treat our students. And if a teacher is good, kind, and compassionate, and if a teacher works very hard and prepares for his class, I don't think that he will have to face problems. Okay, and students are better than teachers. This is my experience. All students are better than teachers, and let us you know let us treat our students with a lot of love, care, compassion. Let us treat them respectfully and politely, and let us love. This is my personal belief that if you love, you are loved more. If you hate, you hate it more. If you want your students to love you, you must love them. That's all. Thank you so much.